Hello and welcome to Endemic Times. My name is Zamira. What if I told you that Obama's legacy, the Affordable Care Act, or better known as Obamacare, that was responsible for the biggest shift in healthcare coverage of Americans, is about to fall off of a cliff? And not because of Republicans, not because of some far right-wing, ultra-conservative, supermajority government. No, but by the very man that was chosen by the DNC to usher in the first Black president, and chosen by the DNC, not the people, to be the Democratic nominee and ultimate president in 2020. That's right, none other than Joe Biden. Under Obama, the largest shift in medical coverage history took place in this country, seeing millions of people obtaining medical coverage. Now, thanks to President Joe Biden, the largest shift in history in medical coverage is about to take place, and not in a positive direction, a negative direction. All of the gains that Obama made in terms of medical coverage is going to be reversed by the very man and political party that fear-mongered voters into voting for based on that fear that this was what Republicans were going to do. It's not Republicans doing it. Are they happy about it? Of course they are. But they're not ushering it in. It's Joe Biden, it's the Democrats, and they're all lying to us. In March 2020, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act passed, which required states to keep most members continuously enrolled on Medicaid. Prior to this act, states would periodically reevaluate members' eligibility, including income, and this redetermination would have Medicaid coverage either continue or stop. Since the start of the pandemic, Medicaid and CHIP enrollment has jumped to 90 million, an increase of 19.8 million people, including children. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services reported that from February 2020 to May 2021, enrollment in Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, grew by 11 million people, or more than 17%. The largest increase over 18 months in the program's history. Federal spending on the program grew by 9.2% to $671.2 billion in 2020 because of the growth in enrollment. Unfortunately, this program of continuous Medicaid enrollment is set to end around April 16th, with millions expected to be bumped from the program, which grants healthcare coverage to nearly 80 million low-income people throughout the country.
If you get healthcare coverage through Medicaid, you may be at risk of losing that coverage over the next year. Nearly 84 million people are covered by the government-funded program. The program increased by 20 million people since just before the COVID pandemic hit. At the beginning of the pandemic, the federal government prohibited states from kicking people off Medicaid, even if they were no longer eligible. But now states will begin checking eligibility for Medicaid for the first time in 3 years. Nearly 14 million of those people could lose access to their health coverage. States will start that process as early as April.
Projections from the Kaiser Family Foundation see between 5 million and 14 million people losing Medicaid coverage over the next year as pandemic-era benefits unwind. According to the Urban Institute, the audits that have been suspended for the last 2 years could lead to as many as 15 million people losing their health insurance, including 6 million children. So who does this affect? The devastation that we are likely to see in the massive disenrollment of people from Medicaid is not simply because of a change in income. No, millions are going to lose their Medicaid coverage for something as minor as not updating personal information, something that has not been required since March 2020. It could also be the result of missing a letter in the mail about their changing status. Millions of people that qualify for Medicaid are expected to be removed from the system simply because of these more clerical issues of current addresses. Remember that housing crisis that came to a head during the pandemic? Remember the eviction moratorium? When that was lifted, many of the people that the moratorium was meant to safeguard and allow for continuous housing are the very same people that are now being affected by this Medicaid continuous enrollment cancellation. Stan Dorn, director of the National Center of Coverage Innovation at Families USA, stated that many people moved during the pandemic, and a large number of those who received Medicaid were also caught up in the eviction abortion crisis. We are at a completely unprecedented time in history where we are all still in the throes of a global pandemic that has brought economies to their knees, most significantly the United States. While the president, fellow politicians, and media pundits continue to gaslight American citizens, acting as if the economy is great and that a recession is not on the brink of destroying our economy altogether, it is the people, especially working class, low income, and outright poor people, that are seeing their dollars not going as far. Costs are up in every aspect of American life: food, rent, utilities, gas are all the main culprits right now of where Americans are seeing their money drained. And many of the fears of a worsening economy and serious recession are not unfounded, and we are getting ever closer to those fears becoming a reality.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell back on Capitol Hill today for day 2 of his testimony. He will be in front of the House Financial Services Committee this morning. Stocks tumbled yesterday after his comments that rates may have to go higher to rein in inflation. Watch this.
The latest economic data have come in stronger than expected. If the totality of the data were to indicate that faster tightening is warranted, we'd be prepared to increase the pace of rate hikes.
Joining me now is the Bear Traps Report founder and New York Times bestselling author, Larry McDonald. Larry, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. I want to get your take on Jay Powell yesterday. What did you make of the speech?
Well, it's kind of like he's overcooking the goose. They're playing catch up, and while they were doing quantitative easing in 2021, inflation started to rage, and now they're trying to catch up. Our 21 Lehman systemic risk indicators that look at equity and credit point to one of the highest probabilities of a crash in the stock market looking out 60 days.
Wow, 60 days? You're saying you're going to see it? We're going to see a crash in the stock market within 60 days?
Yes, because the withdrawal of capital from the middle class families is so spectacular. For every 1% increase, now, a lot of these economists and Wall Street people, they throw around, oh, the Fed's hiking basis, 100 basis points, 50 basis points. The bottom line is for every 1% increase in rates, and we've done almost 5% now, every 1% takes $50 billion out of the pockets of middle class families. Auto loans right now are approaching 14%. Almost 20% of auto loans are $1,000 a month. And so the middle class families are getting hammered here. And so the consumer pressure is, violent. But on the high end, the wealthy are doing well with excess savings and higher interest rates.
We have a looming recession and continued inflation with no sign in sight from either the economy or the administration that anything will change or that any plans will be implemented to ease the pain. That is why this enormous shift in millions of people being removed from Medicaid coverage is going to lead to further financial drain on the American public. Government officials and healthcare advocates emphasized how large a shift in American healthcare coverage this would be, and noted that this would occur while the country is still struggling with the spread of the coronavirus. This could be the biggest healthcare transition since the Affordable Care Act passed. But this would be in a negative direction for coverage instead of a positive one. Let's think about this. The largest shift in medical coverage since the enactment of the Affordable Care Act that was implemented during the previous recession is happening again under President Joe Biden. It's not happening under Republicans. It's not happening under an ultra-conservative supermajority. It's happening under the very president that was ushered in by the DNC, that was the vice president under Obama for 2 terms. And Obama even warned us back in 2020 during the presidential campaign. Obama said, do not underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F things up. This doesn't feel like some mere F up, though. It feels more like the orchestrated and carefully curated design by the Democratic establishment that has been increasingly pushing for more war, police state-level funding, using January 6th for surveillance state measures, silencing of dissent, and outright censorship of those with proof that are pushing against the mainstream narrative. So much of this is a war against the poor. When looking at the people most affected by these healthcare changes and economic decline, it's the poor, low income, working class, and disproportionately Black and brown people that will suffer. The same people that were the frontline workers during the pandemic. The people working 2, 3, sometimes 4 jobs just to make ends meet. The poor and working class are being beat down by the very party that feigns care during elections, but does nothing of substance when they have the power to make change. And as usual, all of this is and will continue to affect our most vulnerable population, children, because they haven't been through enough. In Utah, a similar effort to review enrollment status occurred last year in their CHIP program and is likely a preview of what we will see throughout the country. In Utah, more than 41% of the 15,000 kids enrolled in Utah's program lost their health insurance during the redetermination process, despite the state's efforts to reach out to people, update addresses, and send out notifications in advance. 15,000 kids. That's just one state. I've said it before. If you're pro-life, how is this acceptable? If you're pro-Democrat, how is this not a damning sign of political inaction? Both sides, when it's convenient, claim to care about life and the lives of children. Well, then I ask, how the fuck is this okay? In what supposedly the richest nation in the world, how is it that children don't have medical coverage? How is it that we have the most billionaires, but the largest homelessness population? How is it that we have the most inflated police budgets, some exceeding entire nations, but officers still won't put themselves in the line of fire to save elementary students? This system is broken. There is some bright light in all of this darkness, however, and it's coming down to the individual states. Oregon plans to allow children to stay on Medicaid until age 6 and allow everyone else up to 2 years of eligibility, regardless of changes in income and without having to reapply. No other state provides more than 1 year of guaranteed eligibility. Oregon is also creating a subsidized health plan that would cover anyone who no longer qualifies for Medicaid, but has an annual income below 200% of the federal poverty level, which amounts to about $29,000 for an individual. The program will have benefits similar to Medicaid's at little or no cost to enrollees. Rhode Island will automatically move people no longer eligible for Medicaid and with annual incomes below 200% of the poverty rate into an Affordable Care Act plan and pay their first 2 months of premiums. State officials hope the shift will be seamless for many enrollees because they'll be moving between health plans run by the same company. California will move some people to a subsidized private plan on the state's marketplace, Covered California. Enrollees will have to agree and pay a premium if they don't qualify for a free plan. However, the premium could be as low as $10 a month. If you or someone you know is on Medicaid or using CHIP, reach out, get information updated as soon as you can, and look into your state's eligibility requirements to make sure that you're covered. I think it's incredibly heartless to be doing all of this during tax season, like things aren't stressful enough. And I have a feeling that's why they chose April. Siphon more taxes that are projected to provide less refunds as a whole while taking away healthcare. This is happening under Democrats, the ones that tell us to vote for them to keep our healthcare safe and protect women's rights. If it feels like they're lying to you, it's because they are. We have to follow the money. All of this comes down to one thing: money. The federal government hitting the debt ceiling is putting a serious strain on our economy. The Federal Reserve raising rates, trying to deal with inflation, is just pushing us ever closer to a massive recession, and certainly is not helping the situation. The more serious and egregious aspect to this is the amount of money that is being funneled to Ukraine. While an exact accounting is getting more and more difficult to pin down, what we do know is that over $100 billion has been approved to Ukraine, and that's not accounting for the upcoming plans in the works to provide more aid in the coming months, or the sheer amount of military arsenal that's draining our own supply. I have discussed this in more detail in this video if you want to learn more. I will finish with this. A large, poor population is a distraught population. When you are distraught, you see very little hope. When you have a population en masse that is losing hope, people will make decisions that many will deem reprehensible, despicable, and disgusting, with no room for understanding why people are doing, saying, or acting the way that they are based on their circumstances. The more the American citizens' circumstances continue to decline and people see very little hope in their situation, the more tenuous, anxious, and angry people are going to be. And that is only going to lead to more division and more destruction, frankly. This is why I think that despite their record, Republicans are going to win in a landslide in 2024. Because what else do voters have to do than vote? We can't peacefully protest without fear of getting killed by police. We can't speak up on Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook without getting censored or smeared as conspiracy theorists. The Democrats continue to say, keep voting for them, but they do nothing when they have power. Well, don't be surprised when you lose in 2024. You've been warned. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on the weekly videos provided here to help you prepare for what's coming. Your help in getting this information out to the masses is greatly appreciated. If you want to, check out these playlists to learn more about the economy and the impending food crisis, because yeah, that's a real possibility that we all need to be preparing for. Remember that we are all in this together, and the best way for us to move forward positively is to work together and not let the division constantly being pushed on us take hold. Stay safe, take care, and be kind to each other. The